November 14th, 1942. Morning. A British naval officer's name got added to the casualty list. Killed in action. His commanding officer signed the paperwork. His bunk was cleared out. His personal belongings, a few photographs, a letter, his father's compass, a small notebook, were packed into a wooden box. Lid closed. Standard procedure. Everything by the book. 11 hours later, the man walked through the base gate, soaking wet, exhausted, alone, and very much alive. The guard froze, called for the commander. The commander came out into the hallway and just stood there, looking at this man. Long silence, because this man was dead, officially. His name was on the list, his stuff was in a box, and here he was, standing right there. Now think about that for a second. 11 hours. Where was he? What was he doing? How was he standing here? This story is about those 11 hours, but more than that, it's about one specific moment inside those 11 hours. A moment in the middle of the open ocean, past midnight at hour 7, with no sense of direction left, when this man made a decision. Subscribe right now, because this story is about courage, yeah, but it's really about a choice. Made alone, in the dark, with zero guarantees. Let me set the scene first, because without this context, the weight of what happens doesn't fully land. 1942, North Africa. The war is grinding across Europe, but a critical piece of it has shifted here. To the Mediterranean, Germany and Italy's North African forces, under Rommel's command, are pushing east toward Egypt. The Allies are pulling back, regrouping, planning a counteroffensive. In this theater, control of the sea was everything. Allied ships, carrying supplies, troops, ammunition, fuel, had to keep moving through the Mediterranean. And to cut those supply lines off, German and Italian submarines and warships were operating out of North African ports. Specific ports, heavily protected ports, constant threats. Taking those threats out wasn't simple. A conventional naval assault meant massive casualties. The harbor defenses were too strong. Air bombardment wasn't precise enough. Civilian casualties and infrastructure damage would have been unacceptable. So what was left? Send one man, swimming, at night. His name was Robert William Carver. Born in Portsmouth, 1915. Grew up on England's southern coast, a city where the sea is always visible, always smellable, always present. His dad was a sailor. His grandfather was a sailor. His grandfather's father was a sailor. For the Carver family, the ocean wasn't an adventure. It was just the air. Robert learned to swim around the same time he learned to walk. At 12, he won the local swimming championship. At 16, he swam the English Channel. Twice. That second crossing matters. Most people who do it once stop there. Carver went back and did it again. The first time he learned what the sea was, its cold, its rhythm, when it carries you, and when it fights you. The second time he learned something else, what he was capable of inside it. He joined the Navy at 23, standard training, standard postings. Good sailor, exceptional swimmer, but after a while, a different kind of program came along. The British Navy was building something new. Almost nobody knew about it. Underwater swimmers, men who slipped into enemy harbors at night, attached explosives to ship hulls, and came back out. Silent, invisible. In theory. Carver was one of the first names on that program's list, and in November 1942, he was sent on his first real mission. The details of the mission are still partially classified. Some of the archive files haven't been fully released, but the broad strokes are known. A harbor in North Africa. We're keeping the name out of this. 3 German supply ships were sitting in that harbor. They were running a regular supply line, fuel and ammunition to German ground forces in the region. Consistent, critical. The mission: attach explosives to all 3 ships. Get back. Simple enough on paper, right? Not even close. The harbor had active security. Patrol boats running circuits throughout the night. A lighting system that swept the water's surface continuously. And the water temperature in November, right on the edge of dangerous for extended exposure, and Carver was going alone. No backup, no support team, no extraction plan beyond his own ability to swim back. If something went wrong, nobody was coming. Nobody even knew exactly where he'd be at any given moment. He went into the water at 11 p.m. Dark, cold water, salt in his mouth. Carver entered the water outside the protected zone, well clear of the harbor perimeter. He was carrying dive equipment and a waterproof pack loaded with explosives, nothing else. He swam slow, just below the surface. When he had to come up for air, brief, silent, eyes in every direction, then back under. The first patrol boat came through, 10 meters away, maybe less. Carver pulled himself down, held his breath. He could hear the motor through the water, felt it through his entire body. The boat passed. He kept going. First ship, got under the hull, placed the explosive, set the timer, checked it, moved off. Second ship, same routine. But this one was bigger, and finding the right placement point took longer. Patience, stillness, silence. Third ship, total time inside the harbor, 2 hours and 10 minutes. 3 ships had charges on them. Carver was still alive, and as far as he could tell, nobody had noticed. All he had to do now was get back. Carver came back toward the harbor entrance and stopped. Something had changed. There was a continuous light beam sweeping the entrance, back and forth, slow and thorough. It wasn't there before. Had the Germans noticed something? Was it a routine schedule change? Didn't matter. The result was the same. Getting out that way was impossible. Carver held position underwater. 1 minute, 5 minutes, 10 minutes. The light didn't stop. The sweep pattern didn't change. Systematic, comprehensive. And his brain was running numbers. The charges would go off in roughly 2.5 hours. If I'm still inside when they blow, I go with them. He ran through his options. 1, surrender. Means capture. Means interrogation. Probably means death. 2, stay hidden in the harbor. Wait it out. Explosion risk. And after the explosion, German search teams flooding the area. 3, find another way out. He didn't have a map. The map he'd brought had gotten soaked and fallen apart, but he had the map in his head, the one he'd memorized during the briefing. Every inlet, every structure, every wall. And in that mental map on the eastern side of the harbor where the wall ended, there was an ambiguity. A gap, maybe, or just a section that hadn't been clearly documented. Maybe. That was his only option. Carver turned east, started working his way along the harbor wall, deep under the surface, coming up for air only when he had to. And every time he did, the risk was real. The wall was long, stone and concrete. He could feel the cold surface on his hands, or he was trying to. His fingers were going numb. How far did he go? He tried to calculate it afterward, but couldn't nail it down. A long time, he said. I don't remember how long. And then, the gap. Small. A section of old, worn wall. Not wide, 2 people couldn't have fit through side by side, but one person, slim, moving carefully, could get through. He got through. And suddenly, open ocean. He was out. Out of the harbor, into the Mediterranean, into the dark. But his base was 11 miles away. 11 miles of open water. Past midnight. Alone. His body had already been in cold water for 2.5 hours. His muscles ached. His fingers were numb. And there was no other way home. About 2 hours later, the charges went. Carver was out in open water when it happened. Swimming. 3 explosions behind him. One right after another. Big. He felt the shock wave through the water before he heard the sound. The whole ocean seemed to pulse around him. He stopped, turned around. He could see fire and smoke rising from the harbor direction, far away but visible. Orange and yellow against the dark sky. Heavy smoke cutting the night. 3 ships. Mission complete. He floated there for a moment, just watching. Then he turned back around and kept swimming. because he still had 9 miles in front of him. I want you to think about this moment for a second. Past midnight. Open Mediterranean. Water temperature right at the edge of dangerous. Nothing around him, no lights, no sounds, no other people. Just water and darkness, and a fire dying in the distance behind him. Carver is swimming. Fatigue is stacking, 2.5 hours of harbor work, now open ocean on top of that. Muscles tightening, shoulders burning, fingers numb. And there's one thing in his head, keep going. Let me ask you something. What would you be thinking at that point, for real? 11 miles, night, alone. Body starting to shut down. I actually want to know. Drop it in the comments. Carver swam, 1 hour, 2 hours. The body was slowing, but it wasn't stopping. 3rd hour. Muscles weren't hurting from pain anymore. More like a thick, heavy numbness moving through everything. But he didn't stop. Meanwhile, what was happening back at base? A few hours after Carver went into the water, his commanding officer started watching the clock. The return window had passed. Hour 1. A delay was normal. Operations rarely ran exactly on schedule. Hour 2. Concern. A search operation started getting organized, but it was the middle of the night. The search area was uncertain. Making too much noise would blow the operation's cover. Hour 3. A limited search went out. Nothing. Hour 4. News came in from intelligence channels. 3 ships had gone down in the harbor. The mission had worked, but no word from Carver, and the commander had to make a call. At first light, Carver's name went on the casualty list. Killed in action. His bunk was cleared. His belongings were boxed up. At that moment, Carver was still in the water, swimming. Hour 7. Carver's body was in genuinely dangerous territory. Here's how hypothermia works. It starts with shivering, the body trying to generate heat. But after a while, the shivering stops. That's actually worse. When shivering stops, muscle coordination starts going. Thinking slows down. Decisions get harder. This is what Carver said about that point, in his own words later. At hour 7, I lost my sense of direction. I didn't know which way the shore was. My head was still working, but slowly, very slowly, and there was nothing around me to reference, just water. He stopped. He assessed, and then he did this. He picked a direction. No map, no compass, no rescue team, no reference point. Just, at hour 7, nearly frozen alone in the middle of a dark ocean. He picked a direction and kept going. Hour 10. The sky was still dark, but it had that barely there quality. Not dawn yet, but the thing just before dawn. That gray-black shift. Carver noticed something. The wave pattern had changed. Subtle but real. Open ocean waves feel different from coastal waves. When you're getting close to shore, the rhythm shifts. Reflected waves, a different texture in the water. He lifted his head, looked. In the distance, a dark line. Maybe the shore. Maybe his eyes playing tricks. He kept going, got closer. The line got bigger, bigger. And then, rock under his feet. Actual rock, hard, fixed, real. He tried to stand up, fell. His legs weren't working right. Tried again, got to his knees, crawled forward, hit sand. He lay down flat on the sand and breathed. Morning was coming. Early that morning, a local fisherman spotted a shape on the shore. Came out of the water, geared up, face down, not moving. He walked over. The man was breathing. Shallow, uneven, but breathing. The fisherman didn't know what to do. There were both Allied and German forces operating in the region. Helping the wrong person was dangerous. But the man had pieces of British equipment on him. At least what he could tell. He helped. Found water. Tried to get the man to drink. Found an old jacket, a sack. Covered him up. Carver opened his eyes, looked at the fisherman, and the first thing he said was, "Did the ships go down?" He said it in English. The fisherman didn't understand. But the fact that he could ask that, after 11 hours in the water, barely able to move, still half frozen, the fact that his first thought was the mission, that tells you everything you need to know about this man. Within a few hours, Carver made contact with British forces through a local resistance network. got transported back to base. When he walked through the gate, the guard stopped cold, called it in. The commander came out. The man was standing right there, wet, wrecked, but standing. The commander stared at him for a long moment. "Carver." "Sir?" "We put you on the casualty list." "I know, sir." Short pause. "How did you get back?" Carver laid it out. East wall, the gap, open water, 11 hours. The commander listened the whole way through without interrupting. Then, "Write up the report." Carver nodded. "And Carver." "Sir?" "Your stuff is in a box. Go get it." Carver went to his room. The box was sitting on the table. Standard wood, lid closed. He sat down, looked at it for a moment, then opened it. Took everything out one piece at a time. The photographs, Portsmouth, his family, guys from his unit. Put them back where they belonged. The letter, his mother's handwriting, he hadn't read it in months. Into the drawer, his father's compass. He picked that one up, held it in his palm, looked at it, put it in his pocket. The notebook. Back on the shelf. He closed the box, pushed it under the bed, and lay down on his bunk. Slept for 16 hours. Didn't move, didn't dream. Or if he did, he didn't remember it. Just out. When he woke up, the commander called him in. Official debrief. Standard procedure. Walk me through exactly what happened. Why did your return route change? Did you know about that gap in the east wall going in? Carver talked through it. Short, clear, not a lot of extra words. The entrance light, the decision to go east, working along the wall, the gap, open ocean, 11 hours. The commander took notes, then asked, "That gap, it wasn't in your briefing materials. How did you find it?" Carver thought about it. There was an ambiguity in the map I'd memorized. That section of the wall wasn't clearly documented. It could have been an opening. I went to check. Could have been. Right. What if it wasn't there? Then I would have found out. The commander put his pen down. Hour 7, you said you lost your directional sense. What did you do? I picked a direction, kept going. How did you decide which direction was right? Carver shrugged. I picked one. Picked. Intelligence reports came in over the following days. 3 ships down. Harbor had taken significant damage. The German supply line in that sector was disrupted for weeks. Later assessments argued that cutting that supply line played a role in German ground forces in the region being caught unprepared for the next Allied offensive push. Was it decisive? That's debatable. Isolating the impact of any single operation in a war is hard. But here's what isn't debatable. 3 ships went down. 1 man did it alone, swimming, in the dark, and he came back. A British naval officer later wrote in his assessment, Carver carried the weight of the operation. But beyond the operation, he carried the return. And the second was considerably harder than the first. Carver received the Distinguished Service Medal. Official ceremony. At the moment the commander went to pin it on, he asked one more question. At hour 7, out in the open water, direction gone. What were you thinking? Carver paused. I wasn't thinking about not making it back. I just swam. That's it. That's the whole answer. In the years that followed, Carver ran 2 more operations. Came back from both. When the war ended, he returned to Portsmouth. Got married, had 4 kids, spent years in the Royal Navy as a training officer. The first thing he taught every new sailor, water survival. And before every class, he said the same thing. The ocean doesn't want to kill you. You kill yourself the moment you stop. Carver died in 1989. He was 74. Portsmouth, his own home. After his death, some of the archive files were opened up. The details of the 1942 operation came out for the first time. In 2001, a British naval history journal ran a full piece on it. And the debate started. One camp says, Carver is a straight-up hero. Single-person operation, completed successfully. The return looked impossible, and he made it anyway. Skill, not luck. The other camp pushes back. Carver got lucky. Without that gap in the east wall, he stays in the harbor. Explosion takes him with it. At hour 7, if he'd picked the wrong direction, hypothermia would have taken him. The luck factor can't be ignored. Carver would have laughed at that debate, because he always said the same thing. Luck comes to the prepared. If you're not ready, luck doesn't find you. That gap in the east wall, he hadn't seen it in the briefing, but he'd memorized that map so thoroughly, analyzed it so carefully, that he caught the ambiguity. That's not luck. That's preparation. Hour 7, picking the right direction? Yeah, there's a luck element, but making it to hour 7 in the first place, that's years of open water swimming, 2 channel crossings, and a body that had been built for exactly this. Was Robert William Carver a hero? The official records say successful operation. Distinguished Service Medal, 1 paragraph. Historians say interesting case study, single-person maritime sabotage. But here's what I keep coming back to. At hour 7, in the middle of the open ocean, in the dark, no direction, alone, Carver did one thing. He picked a direction. Was it the right one? He didn't know. It was the reasonable one, the most likely one, the one that made the most sense with what little he had. And he went. That decision, small, quiet, made alone in total darkness with 0 guarantees, brought him to shore. So here's the real question I want to leave you with. That moment, completely alone, completely dark, completely uncertain. What keeps a person going? Sense of duty, survival instinct, or something else? Something deeper, quieter, harder to name, but sitting somewhere inside all of us? Drop it in the comments. I genuinely want to know what you think. Carver's answer was always the same. I just kept going. Maybe the deepest answer is the simplest one. If this one hit you, hit the like button. Subscribe for more. Every day on this channel, I tell the stories of Britain's forgotten war heroes that history walked right past. Ring the bell so you don't miss the next one.